Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I think I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes to kind of join, but we will start here pretty shortly. Okay, everyone is kind of coming in. We'll just give everyone a minute or so more, and then we'll just go ahead and start. Okay, we'll start in about 30 seconds or so. All right. We can go ahead and get starting. We can go ahead and get started. My name is Taylor Woody, and I'm a stakeholder relationship expert. I'm actually filling in for Allison Hendricks. She would have loved to give this webinar today. However, she is sick, so I'm just going to be filling in with her kind of last minute. So I apologize for any confusion, and I thank you for letting me host this webinar today for you guys. So let me get started. Okay, so on today's agenda, we're going to go over the benefits, common models, our approach to stakeholder mapping here at Darzen, and best practices and tips at the end. Okay, benefits. An effective stakeholder management system is a critical aspect of any successful project or organizational strategy to enable you to properly do stakeholder mapping. It offers a plethora of benefits to organizations, including risk reduction and improved project outcomes. By proactively engaging and addressing these needs and concerns of your stakeholders, you can build trust and establish positive relationships, which can ultimately lead to greater success for your organization. In fact, actually, many organizations have regulatory requirements to consult with stakeholders and provide evidence of their engagement. This is where stakeholder management really comes in providing organizations with the necessary evidence that they have considered the opinions and requirements of their stakeholders. Beyond regulatory requirements, stakeholder management is also crucial for organizations to develop and maintain a social license to operate. In recent years, the concept of social license has become more prevalent, with more and more organizations realize the importance of earning the trust of stakeholders in the broader community. Identifying risk early on and avoiding delays in project completion is another key benefit of stakeholder management. For some government agencies, stakeholders management is often focused on improving programs and reducing negative impacts on vulnerable communities. Overall, stakeholder management is a common thread across all organizations that strive to become more efficient, improve organizational performance, and ensure the success of their projects. Relationships are really a key part in stakeholder management and consultation. Not only the relationships between you and organizations and stakeholders, but the relationships between stakeholder groups and individuals themselves, as these can have a high significant impact on your consultation approach and project outcomes. Stakeholder relationship management can help you see at a glance who your stakeholder groups are and how they relate to one another, bring your stakeholder list to life, make it more meaningful, visualize communities, organizations as a web of stakeholder relationships and stakes, which they are, better understand power and influence and how they might impact your project, identify and manage potential risk early on, kind of like an early warning system, I like to say, discover new ways to group your stakeholders, identify key players who are more likely to positively or negatively impact your project, and prioritize influential stakeholders in your consultation. Ensure your project organization is being discussed by the right people and win over key stakeholders with their influence, making it easier to bring those other stakeholders on board. Really, you can identify and adapt to changing power structures in the environment, and you can also use your resources and time more efficiently. Okay. Sorry, you guys, I was having a little technical difficulty, but on to the next slide. Okay. In practical terms, utilizing stakeholder analysis enables individuals and organizations to identify and cultivate their supporters and advocates. By identifying key stakeholders at the outset of a project, stakeholders can be leveraged to expand their network, build trust, and secure social license to operate. This heightened level of engagement and understanding results is more productive interactions, which ultimately facilitates the development of trust and enables the project to succeed. A stakeholder management plan really helps you get the most important information on paper so you can more effectively engage with the right stakeholders. We actually have a great stakeholder plan on our website you can check out if you get some free time. It's really easy. A lot of our customers like to use it. Okay. All right, so I have the chat on, and I was just hoping to see, what are maybe some of your biggest challenges with stakeholder mapping? So if you guys want to drop in the comments, I would love to understand a little bit more about that. One of the things we find when talking to customers is even when they have done stakeholder mapping, they don't really have any way of making use of that data throughout the project life cycle. Is that something that you see? Is that something that your organization is dealing with? Okay, creating something that is visual. Managing between projects and staff. Okay, yeah, that's another challenge that we often hear. Okay, thank you so much for dropping these comments in here. Yeah, another way is, making sure it's always up to date and informing you on all of your decisions. That's another one. Yep, managing throughout project consistently. I agree. Prioritizing segments, selecting the most relevant aspects to the map, i.e. interest and impact. Yeah, that's a really great one. We'll actually be going over that in this presentation. Okay, thank you guys so much for leaving these comments. I'll definitely aim to address these common issues that you guys have in this webinar. Okay, let's move on to common models. So I'm going to show you guys some standard models that we have seen for stakeholder mapping in these next few slides. So the most common model is stakeholder salience, and this is the idea that the intersection between power and urgency. So people who have the potential to influence decisions and how important the issues are to those people. There are three most commonly used models, being power, urgency, and legitimacy, stakeholder predictability and power, and stakeholder interest and power. Oops. Uh-oh, okay. Missing one slide, but predictably in power is really another common model that was created by Mandello in 1991. The power, urgency, and legitimacy is a model that was developed by Ackerman in 1998 and then was updated in 2001. We often see those matrices or grids of power versus urgency of power versus legitimacy used by people who are doing stakeholder mapping. And then often most expressed is this power grid as stakeholder interest in power. What model of stakeholder mapping do you guys currently use, or is there a model that you follow? Yes, these slides will be available after the webinar. Sorry, I got a question. But yeah, is there a current model that you guys are currently doing? Do you have any way or any current process, or is it just kind of ad hoc? Okay. Power urgency, okay. Yeah, and I think with a lot of these models that we see is they're really outdated. And what we want to do is kind of take a modern approach to stakeholder mapping and use a different model. Okay, grid urgency and importance. That is a very common one that we see. Okay, if someone asked if we can go back to the previous slide, I'm going to go back. Maybe some of this information kind of ring a bell in what you're currently doing. Okay. Power predictably. Power interest grid resonates. Okay, yeah, this is great information. Okay, so I'm going to go on to, let's see. The next few slides, I'm going to kind of explain our approach to stakeholder mapping. Really, in order to ensure a comprehensive and effective stakeholder engagement strategy, we've adopted a multi-layer approach that begins by identifying contact groups for the purpose of functional grouping stakeholders. This approach really recognizes the diversity and complexity of stakeholder perspectives and interests and seeks to tailor engagement efforts to specific groups of stakeholders while also facilitating cross-functional collaboration and coordination. By starting at the contact group level, we are better equipped to prioritize stakeholder needs and expectations while also fostering a more cohesive and strategic approach to stakeholder engagement. The first layer is really all about identifying the stakeholders' interest, impact, and influence on a scale from very large to very high, tracking how those factors change over time. And I'm sure most of you are actually really familiar with kind of those three segments. In the second layer of stakeholder mapping, we identify the most critical stakeholders to our project success. So we do this by tracking their position, which can range from very negative, very positive, and how it changed over time. This helps us really understand, who should we focus on engaging with first, where the low-hanging fruit is, and where we can make the most significant impact. The third layer really focuses on relationships. We look at how stakeholders are connected to each other to better understand the network effect. Finally, we have custom fields that allow us to track any other relevant information, such as demographics or other unique features that may be important to the project. By using this multi-layer approach, we really gain a broad overview of our stakeholders from multiple lenses and dimensions. It gives you that strategic insight to who to focus on first and how much effort required to engage with them. This stakeholder mapping within these 6 dimensions is really this new modern approach that we're taking versus the other approaches who are more 3-dimensional, 1-dimensional, just kind of outdated, that don't necessarily work to engage all your different stakeholders from multiple lenses and dimensions internally and externally. Okay, so here are those 3 I's: influence, interest, and impact. On a very basic level, if you're doing these 3 I's, you have a really good start to stakeholder mapping. Often we like to explain interest to our clients, and I'm going to give you a quick story because influence, interest can be a little bit confusing sometimes. A few years back, an oil project was initiated on the Australian coast. They secured all the necessary permits. They got thumbs up from everyone that needed to get a thumbs up from. However, the project planners actually overlooked the importance of consulting with the local residents living on a nearby island. This oversight ultimately led to a legal dispute, which was initiated by the island inhabitants, who felt really marginalized by the lack of engagement. The court ruled in their favor, resulting in a significant financial loss for the project, amounting to millions of dollars. So this is why it's really important to understand who are those stakeholders at the beginning of the project, and tracking those relationships throughout your project entirety. So interest may not be that stakeholder that you think of off the top of your head, right? But it's actually someone who definitely needs to be consulted throughout the entirety of your project. We really understand it's not just who you're speaking to, but who you're not speaking to as well, right? How do you distinguish? Okay. And also I can go over this more in detail, if anyone has any more questions about this, or you didn't understand that little explanation, but I think that kind of explains, how we segment based on interest. And many of you probably have experienced the same thing. Go next. So we are really thrilled to announce the upcoming release of DARS and Simply Stakeholders, which is really set to revolutionize stakeholder relationship management. Our latest release is not just about organizing stakeholder lists and tracking interactions, but a really sophisticated tool that builds an intelligent stakeholder relationship model. With the 3D relationship mapping feature, you have access to a comprehensive and multidimensional view of your stakeholders. This includes not just organization yours, but also external networks that they leverage, giving you a deep understanding of the relationships. Additionally, stakeholder mapping will help you identify who is crucial to your success, while relationship health scores will enable you to monitor the strengths of relationships over time. You also have that ability to track important projects, risks, tasks, and opportunities with smarter search and filtering capabilities to quickly access the data that matters most. Our monitoring and trend analyst tools provides actionable insights, giving you the confidence to make informed decisions. The latest release also comes with guides to support your change management and ensure that your team is fully onboarded. With that system, you can really confidently share contacts while still retaining oversight and control, and you can really trust that accuracy of data provided. Okay, so some best practices and tips. Um, First of all, just like stakeholder engagement plans, stakeholder relationship mapping isn't something you should just spend days and weeks doing only to leave it on the shelf. Really make sure you're actually using your stakeholder relationship maps to plan your engagement and make decisions. A good starting point is to use the insight from your stakeholder maps to create logical groups of stakeholders for easier management and more effective engagement. My tip number 2 would be keep it fresh. Stakeholders change over time as people move into different communities, change jobs, get promotions, start new businesses, and so on. And of course, stakeholder relationships, power, and influence change for various reasons as well. This means that you'll need to regularly update your stakeholder relationship map to keep it fresh and relevant, especially for those long-term engagements and consultations. Tip 3, build on your knowledge. You probably won't be aware of all your stakeholder relationships from the start of your project. Instead, you'll likely gather, a lot of information as you go. So make sure that you build and habit or process from regularly updating your relationship maps with new details as you uncover them. Tip 4, use stakeholder relationship mapping tools. Although there are manual ways to create relationship maps, as we covered in step 4, it's nearly always worth investing in software for stakeholder relationship mapping. With tools and software, you can automatically generate visualizations based on your data. This not only saves you a lot of time up front, but also ongoing basis, because every time you update the data in your stakeholder list, your stakeholder maps are also updated as well. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. I really appreciate all of your attendance, and I very much appreciate also your time and your questions and your comments. If you want to send me an email, you can at info@simplystakeholders.com. I would love to go over any of this information more in detail, anything that's maybe a little bit more relevant to your current process, and help you build out a stakeholder management plan or stakeholder management mapping. Like I said, you can email me or give me a call as well. I really appreciate your time today, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.